It's one of those stories that leaves a strange, metallic aftertaste, like fear coated in disbelief. The disappearance of Judy Smith, and the even stranger discovery of her remains months later, never received a solid explanation. And yet, it all happened, as real as death. Though at first glance it might sound like the fever dream of a madman, Judy Bradford Smith, 50 years old, a woman with short highlighted hair, brown eyes, 5'2", heavily built, about 250 pounds. She met her husband, Jeffrey, 52, over a decade earlier, and under tragic circumstances. Jeffrey's father had undergone major surgery for throat cancer. He needed home care after being discharged from the hospital. Judy was his private nurse. She cared for the old man with such attentiveness that Jeffrey couldn't help but notice. One day, he asked her out. What started as compassion slowly turned into a connection. Both had been through difficult divorces. Judy, a nurse, had bought her own house and was raising 2 children alone. Jeffrey was also a single parent, living with a daughter from his first marriage. They found common ground in their struggles and in their professions. Both worked in fields connected to pharmaceuticals. They even supported the same basketball team. Eventually, after almost 10 years together, they got married. It was early 1997. On April 9th, 1997, Judy and Jeffrey were scheduled to fly from Boston, Massachusetts to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. For Jeffrey, it was business. He had to attend a legal conference held by the American Association of Pharmacists. Judy was simply tagging along, excited to visit the historic city for the first time. She'd even made a list of tourist spots she wanted to see. That morning was spent packing. Around noon, they headed to Logan Airport. Their flight was scheduled to depart at 1:30 p.m. But upon arrival, Judy realized she had forgotten her ID. After a short discussion, they agreed she would return home to get her documents and take a later flight. Scheduled to leave Boston at 7:30 p.m. Jeffrey landed in Philadelphia around 4 p.m. and checked into the DoubleTree Hotel. Judy arrived later, close to 10 p.m. Jeffrey met her in the lobby. She was holding a bouquet of flowers. They went up together to room 714. The next morning, their plans diverged. Jeffrey had to attend his conference, while Judy wanted to explore the city and its historic landmarks. That evening, they were supposed to meet with old friends in New Jersey and agreed to regroup at the hotel no later than 5 p.m. Jeffrey, in a rush that morning, invited her to join him for a free hotel breakfast. But Judy wasn't in a hurry. She wanted to enjoy a slow morning, linger in the shower, and soak in the quiet of her day off. At 9 a.m., Jeffrey left the room. It was the last time he saw his wife. Throughout the day, Jeffrey remained at the conference. Dozens of people could vouch for his presence. He returned to the hotel just before 6 p.m. and was surprised not to find Judy waiting for him. At first, he assumed they had simply misunderstood their meeting time. But by 6:15 p.m., concern set in. Judy was known to be punctual, obsessively so. She wasn't the kind of person to be late, let alone disappear without warning. Jeffrey wondered if perhaps she'd stopped to help someone. It was in her nature. Just a year earlier, she had nursed a man with AIDS on a flight to Florida, never leaving his side until the plane landed. But this felt different. By 6:30, Jeffrey began searching. He spoke to the hotel concierge and security, trying to retrace her steps. One staff member pointed him toward Independence Square, a location Judy had mentioned wanting to visit. Philadelphia runs a special shuttle service for tourists, a comfortable hop-on hop-off bus line called Philly Flash. Jeffrey assumed Judy had taken one of these and decided to follow the route himself. He hailed a cab and began tracking the bus line, stopping drivers, asking if any had seen his wife. The taxi driver later described Jeffrey as deeply distressed and utterly lost. Jeffrey returned to the hotel at dawn. Then he grabbed his wife's documents and headed to the police station, where things only became stranger. The morning of April 12th marked the official start of the police investigation. Judy Smith, 50 years old, was formally reported missing in Philadelphia. Detectives began at the Doubletree Hotel. No staff had seen Judy, no waiters, no housekeeping, no concierge, except for one man. A front desk worker recalled a woman arriving late on the night of April 9th with a bouquet of flowers, possibly offering it to her husband as an apology for the delay. He saw her only briefly from afar. When asked to identify her photo later, he hesitated. Was it really her? Oddly, Judy's name never appeared in the hotel registry. There was no second key issued, no record of check-in. Jeffrey explained that they had postponed formal registration for the next morning. Not unusual, he claimed. Policies vary from hotel to hotel. She never appeared for breakfast, never unpacked her suitcase. The toiletries remained untouched. No makeup, no comb, no shampoo. Nothing to suggest she'd even showered, yet Jeffrey insisted she had. Did she really shower and then throw her travel clothes back on, leave without freshening up, and wander off into the city? It was strange, but not impossible. Judy didn't wear makeup, she didn't fuss about appearances, and she was a seasoned traveler used to rough conditions. As for not unpacking, she'd arrived after 10 p.m., and the next morning was in no hurry. Perhaps her essentials were all in the red backpack she carried with her, but something else didn't sit right. How could such a practiced traveler forget her ID? Jeffrey claimed that she'd only flown once since the new FAA rules had gone into effect, rules requiring photo ID to board domestic flights. Perhaps she simply wasn't used to the change. Still, doubts began to creep in. Had Judy ever even arrived in Philadelphia? Police started to lean toward a disturbing possibility that Jeffrey Smith had killed his wife and the entire trip had been a cover-up. Statistically, in over 90% of disappearances involving women, the culprit is a spouse or lover. And Jeffrey's story was now under a magnifying glass. Detectives began to question everything. Could his entire timeline have been staged? Could he have orchestrated this? Perhaps Judy had never boarded the flight, never set foot in that hotel room. Perhaps the bouquet of flowers was theater, an alibi carefully planted. Investigators looked back toward Boston and Newton, where the couple owned 2 homes, one belonging to Judy, one to Jeffrey. Family members were questioned. Judy's daughter, Amy, described Jeffrey as responsible and gentle. Friends and colleagues backed that up. A calm, educated man, born in Boston, graduate of Columbia University, law degree from Harvard. He had been practicing law for 20 years and had even helped draft legislation on controlled substances. But his appearance betrayed stress. Overweight, short of breath, with a heavy, plodding gait. Then came another strange detail. Judy was last seen with only $200 in cash. Her credit cards were never used. Her passport remained at home. The only ID she might have carried was her driver's license, which was never found. Judy was wearing blue jeans, white sneakers, and carrying an old red backpack. No handbag, no jewelry, nothing traceable. Her face appeared on TV broadcasts. Flyers were posted across the city. A segment aired, "Help find this woman." Tips flooded in. Dozens of calls claimed to have seen her in multiple completely different locations. Most were dead ends, but some were odd. A bus driver for the Philly Flash line said he saw a woman matching Judy's description near Independence Square on April 10th. Others spotted her on Pratt Street, acting confused and disoriented. On April 11th, someone remembered her shopping at a Macy's department store in Deptford, New Jersey, 60 kilometers from Philadelphia. She bought women's clothing, argued with herself in the aisles, and clutched the arm of another shopper, calling her "my daughter." No security footage captured any of this, no receipts, no hard proof, just memories. Still, police mapped out a potential route. She may have taken Route 400, a local bus that traveled from Broad Street to the shopping district. But why? What was she doing there? No answers. Theories shifted. Perhaps Judy had suffered a mental breakdown. The behaviors matched. Talking to herself. Erratic purchases. Emotional confusion. Cases like this weren't unheard of. In 1996, Canadian actress Margot Kidder, famous for her role as Lois Lane, vanished for 3 days during a manic episode. When found, she was dirty, incoherent, and unable to recall where she'd been. Doctors diagnosed her with schizophrenia and manic depression. Could Judy have suffered something similar? And yet, something still didn't add up. Judy had passed a full medical exam just weeks before the trip. Her children said she was joyful, healthy, and excited. No signs of instability, no history of mental illness. Except for one thing. She did suffer from arthritis, especially in her right knee. The trail went cold. Jeffrey continued his own search. He faxed missing person flyers to every hospital and police department he could think of. He begged the FBI to take the case. He waited. He hoped. Nothing. Until 5 months later, when everything changed. On September 7th, 1997, nearly 5 months after Judy Smith vanished, a disturbing discovery brought the case back into the light. It was around 4 p.m. when 2 illegal hunters, a father and son, stumbled across skeletal remains in the remote woodlands of western North Carolina. Deep inside the Nantahala National Forest, far from any marked road, they found what appeared to be a human skull, partially buried under a pile of branches and stones. The body had been ravaged by animals. Bones scattered over a 100-meter radius. The jawbone was detached. The head lay near the trail. The men, despite risking arrest for poaching, went straight to the sheriff. Sheriff Bobby Medford responded quickly. The climb to the site was steep and treacherous. No vehicle could reach it. Whoever left the body there had done so on foot, and with purpose. The body, or what was left of it, belonged to a woman. She wore blue jeans, thermal long underwear, a sweater, and hiking boots. In her pockets, there was no ID, no money, just a faded flashlight and a paperback novel. Nearby, searchers found a blue backpack and a pair of expensive sunglasses. There was no sign of a struggle, only a shallow pit dug beneath a tree, where someone had wrapped the body in a blanket and loosely covered it with debris. This wasn't the first corpse discovered in that forest. 2 years earlier, another woman had been found, tied to a tree, murdered by a known suspect. But this case felt different, colder, stranger. The remains were sent to the forensic lab in Chapel Hill. The pathologist concluded the victim was a white woman, aged 40 to 50, with advanced arthritis in her right knee and extensive dental work. The exact cause of death was impossible to determine due to decomposition, but sharp incisions on the bra indicated a potential stabbing. The coroner estimated the woman had been dead for at least a year, possibly 2. But something didn't sit right. Judy Smith had disappeared only 5 months earlier. Could the remains be hers? Back in Franklin, North Carolina, a physician named Dr. Parker Davis recalled a missing persons flyer sent months earlier. It featured a woman named Judy Smith. She had arthritis in her right knee, extensive dental work. The physical description matched. He contacted the medical examiner's office. They retrieved Judy's dental records. The comparison was painstaking. And soon after, the coroner confirmed it. The body found in the forest belonged to Judy Smith. But this discovery raised far more questions than it answered. How did Judy Smith, a woman who disappeared in Philadelphia, end up dead in a mountainous forest nearly 1,000 kilometers away? She had never been to North Carolina. She had no family or friends there, no connection whatsoever. And what about the timeline? The coroner had estimated the remains were at least a year old, maybe more. But Judy had only been missing 5 months. That discrepancy, it turned out, was due to environmental factors. The warm, humid climate of the forest, combined with scavenger activity, had accelerated decomposition. The timeline was adjusted. Still, the damage was done. Doubt had crept in. The Smith family was devastated. They weren't convinced. Something didn't make sense. Investigators from Buncombe County, where the body was found, picked up the case. Lead detective Sam Constance launched a search for anyone who had seen Judy in the area. They came up with 2 potential witnesses. The first, a staff member from a nearby campground. She claimed that a woman resembling Judy had arrived in a gray sedan stuffed with boxes and asked to park overnight. They turned her away. She left immediately. The second, a woman named Diana Crow, who worked at a local deli. She remembered selling sandwiches, 10 of them, to a woman who fit Judy's description. The woman also bought a small toy truck, meant for a child. Diana was certain it was Judy, but no one could explain why she was there. She had never visited North Carolina before, and no one close to her recognized the car. A year later, Detective Constance led another search of the forest. For 12 hours, his team combed through the undergrowth. They found something: the missing wedding rings, buried near the original site. Just barely. Almost like they were placed there to be found. But the rings offered no new leads. No DNA, no fingerprints, just more confusion. How had Judy Smith traveled 1,000 kilometers without being seen? Why had she bought a toy truck? Why the camping gear? Why the tourist boots, the sunglasses, the paperback? Why that forest? And above all, who killed her? Despite months of investigation, the case collapsed into a void of speculation. With no suspects, no motive, and no confirmed cause of death, The authorities were left with only 3 plausible theories. Each raised more questions than answers. The first theory suggested that the body found in North Carolina might not have been Judy Smith. Although the dental records matched, the coroner initially estimated the remains had been in the forest for 1 or 2 years, far longer than the 5 months Judy had been missing. Skeptics noted that osteoarthritis in the right knee was common in women of her age and weight. Extensive dental work was not uncommon either. Judy's driver's license was never recovered. There were no fingerprints, no DNA. Some argued that the identification may have been premature, based on similarities rather than certainty. Though unlikely, the possibility remained. The second theory proposed that Judy had traveled to North Carolina voluntarily. According to this version, she left Philadelphia on her own, possibly experiencing a mental health crisis, and died in the forest, either due to misadventure or at the hands of a stranger. This became the official version of events. However, there were inconsistencies. Judy did not drive. She had very little cash and no credit card activity. She left no trace of her travel, no bus tickets, no hotel records, no confirmed sightings along the road. Her passport remained at home. There were no indications that she had any reason to travel to North Carolina. She had never been there before, had no contacts in the area, and no known motive. For some, the story felt too convenient. It lacked supporting evidence and failed to explain the behavior she allegedly exhibited in the forest area. The third and most troubling theory was that Judy was murdered, and her husband, Jeffrey Smith, was responsible. He had a solid alibi, having attended a legal conference with many witnesses. He was the one who first reported her missing. He contacted the police, the media, the FBI. He distributed missing person flyers. But some investigators believed it was all part of a calculated plan. Judy may never have arrived in Philadelphia. A look-alike could have staged a brief appearance at the hotel lobby, handing flowers to Jeffrey, just enough to be remembered by staff. Judy's name was never entered into the hotel register. The hotel room contained none of her personal effects, no toiletries, no hair, no fingerprints. When asked to take a polygraph test, Jeffrey declined unless it was administered by the FBI, and the results led to permanent exoneration. He likely knew such conditions would not be met. As a lawyer with 2 decades of experience, he understood the system and how to avoid legal entanglement. He died in 2004 after a brief illness. No charges were ever filed. The murder of Judy Smith remains unsolved. Her death produced no confession, no arrests, and no known suspects. There were no confirmed witnesses, no murder weapon, no consistent timeline. Only a skeleton on a hillside. Only silence. And questions that never found their answers.